Is there anyone who would like to share anything regarding the tragic hero? We are going to discuss the tragic hero today. Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Khalas Ramawi. I want to talk about if the Oedipus is a tragic hero or not. Okay, Oedipus is the main character of the drama, and is a great king with ideal traits in his moral, in his individual personality. But he is tragic due to a tragic flaw in terms of his moral disposition. So, in terms of Aristotelian theory of tragedy, Oedipus is a tragic hero because he's not perfect, but he has a tragic flaw. Aristotle points out that Oedipus' tragic flaw is excessive pride, hubris, and self-righteousness. He also points out certain characteristics that determine as a tragic hero. Using Oedipus as ideal model, Aristotle says that a tragic hero must be unimportant. Aristotle says that tragic hero must has an important or effective man. I mean, who commits an error in judgment, and who suffer with his actions. I mean, the tragic hero must have a lesson from his error in judgment, and becomes an example of what he or what happens with him if example of what happens when a great man fall from their high social or political position. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will analyze the character Oedipus. Oedipus is a man respectable and valued. He's a great man with a respectable moral value and personality. He loves his people, and Oedipus, as a man, he's dedicated to fighting and avoiding evil. He loves his people. How we can announce? He's so worried about the plague spreading between the plague spreading in his people. He is so worried by the problem of a plague that he hasn't been sleeping. He says that I will not talk to people through a messenger and will not send to messenger to them, but I will come to them. And it's good of him to try avoid the unbearable fate that he hears of. We see the Oedipus isn't not only too confident in his own analysis and understanding of reality. He is also always afraid of doing wrong. He is adamant in a quest to research for the truth and will far to his people. And the name of Oedipus in Greek means swell food, because his father put a chance on his food. But as a tragic character, Oedipus has his hamartized bride. And the tragedy of Oedipus is a tragedy of the human situation. His story tells us the man do his best, but even then he cannot overcome in this inevitable.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Well, right, we are going. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are going to start our class for today. And today we are going to discuss the character of Oedipus as a tragic hero. We are going to start with this traditional question. What is a tragic hero? What is a tragic hero? Yes, please. A good person with a bad end. Yes. Right. Yes, please.
The person who has superior qualities and superior characteristics that lead him to self-destruction.
Self-destruction. Thank you very much. Yes.
A man at a time and place who goes through a sequence of unfortunate events.
Okay. Good. Yes, please.
A virtue that has tragic
Okay, good. Yes, please.
A hero is a person who is superior in mind and body and does things that say about his strength, and why he's called tragic because he has a bad end.
Superior to whom?
Superior to other people. He's better, he's more intellect and more strong,
Aye.
which makes him a hero.
Is he a superhero?
Not a superhero, but slightly better, because he was the only one who answered the riddles, for example.
Right.
Other people could not. So
Good.
he's more smart.
Good point. Yes.
Tragic hero is the person who can lead the tragic actions to reach a lining point of the play.
Right. Okay. Yes, please.
The tragic hero who a person who proves his superiority by doing his villain.
Right. Yeah, the last one. Good. Now, a second question. Do you think Oedipus as a character is a tragic hero or not? Yes, why?
He commits mistakes that leads him to a catastrophe or to a tragic flow.
Right. These mistakes are, personal mistakes or external mistakes?
Personal and external. Because he committed mistakes by killing a king and by killing a king, and because of his destiny or because of the mistake of his parents.
Yeah, but he was destined to kill the king. Someone can say.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Even he commit a lot of mistakes, but when a catastrophe happened to his people, he moved to help his people. So he is a tragic hero. He's a hero. He wants to help his people.
Yes.
He didn't stand without doing anything.
That's right. But do we have all the characteristics of the tragic hero are applicable to the character of Oedipus?
Yes.
Yes. Fine. Right. So this is what we are going to discover today. So our question, what is a tragic hero anyway? Right? Is this. Right? Tragic hero, a man cannot become a hero until he can see the root of his own downfall. You see, this is something conditional that we would like to add to the characteristics of the tragic hero. How do you understand this sentence? A man cannot become a hero. This is a statement from Aristotle's Poetics. From Aristotle's Poetics, he says, a man cannot become a hero until he can see the root of his own downfall. How can you understand this statement? Yes, please. Hello.
I may understand it that a person becomes a hero when he sees the start of his own tragic ending and he continues to be himself or find out what he is and not go completely crazy.
Thank you. Yes, please.
It might mean that a tragic hero discovers his mistakes, his psychological mistakes by himself.
Exactly.
He goes discovering his mistakes, his psychological mistakes. What is the problem with him?
Okay, thank you very much. Excellent. This is the actual meaning. Do you remember when I told you that the most tragic moment when an idiot discovers that he is an idiot?
Yes.
Right? This is the moment is a kind of requirement for the idiot to become what? A tragic hero. Right? The moment in which he realizes that he is an idiot. Right? Okay? So this is a kind of a requirement. It is a moment that the tragic hero is supposed to live in which he comes to a point of enlightenment. Right? What do we mean by a point of enlightenment? A point he knows or realizes what his mistake is.
When he faces the sequences of the mistakes.
No, not faces, but comes to a kind of understanding what his mistake was. In other words, a moment of enignosis, of enlightenment to know what the problem was in his own character. So this is what makes him tragic, that he discovers the mistake in his own character, but it is too late. It is like King Lear. It is like King Lear when he realizes, his big mistake that his two elder daughters did not really love him as his own, younger daughter, Cordelia. But it was too late, right? He was a fool. and he discovered that, right, he is a fool. Yes.
Yesterday I read that when a fool discovers that he is a fool, it's some kind of a smartness.
All right, is that? Yeah, this is a moment of enlightenment, but this is all right. We call it temporary moment smartness, temporary moment of what? Of enlightenment. It is not, or otherwise he wouldn't be called yani, a fool. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah, sometimes it comes, these moments of enlightenment in which a fool realizes that he is a fool, right? Okay, and that's what makes it, all right, tragic. So in addition to the other qualities of the tragic hero, it is necessary for, right, the tragic hero to develop from the state of ignorance into the state of knowledge, right? And this is exactly what is required for any tragic hero to, right, to be considered as a tragic hero. If he doesn't realize his own mistakes, it means that there is no development in his own character. He is no longer around character, but he's a static one. The way he starts, the way he ends, right? Okay, fine. So this is also another requirement for what? For the character of the tragic hero, that he needs to realize his own mistakes, right? To come to a kind of development in the course of the dramatic action. So the tragic hero is a man of noble origin, right? Here we are going to stop a little bit. Some people, they say that he is supposed to be noble, right? But the word noble, it might have more than one possibility. Noble in origin, but he might not be noble in action, right? Noble in origin, what do we mean by noble in origin? That his genealogy, right, refers back or goes back to what? To a royal family or something like that, all right? Or to a noble family, right? But he might not be noble in what? In action, right? And therefore, right, noble here, it might refer to both things, right? That he is noble in origin, that he is from a noble family, right? And he is noble in his own actions, right? And intentions as well. That his deeds might not seem noble to the reader. His, right, deeds might not also seem noble to, right, to the spectator. But his intention is actually, it was a noble intention. Right? Well, we have to notice that literature from the Greek times till the Romantic time, Romantic period, right? It was stories about kings, queens, heroes, all the literature of the noble people, right? But the common man came to the surface for the first time after the movement of Romanticism. But before the movement of Romanticism, right, it was all, literature was about the noble people and noble families and what happens in courts. What happens in courts, right? He is not an ordinary man, but a man with outstanding quality and the greatness about him. His own destruction is for the greater cause or a principle, right? So what does this mean? It means, right? Yes.
That he might die for the sake of his people.
Right.
For the sake of the
For
common good.
for a noble,
For
objective, right? And this is what happened, that he punished himself for Oedipus, right? When he blinded himself and exiled himself from Thebes, it was for the sake of whom? The sake of removing the plague, right? Right. So this destruction or the downfall is for another, a greater, right, and larger noble objective. Well, Oedipus as an ideal hero, right? How can we analyze his own character? Right? We have to start with the nobility of action. Nobility of action, right? He is noble in action, that he must be good, but not perfect. And we know that he was really good. And we gave examples for the goodness of, like what? Please.
When he discovered that he is going to kill his father and marry his mother, he escaped in order to save Oedipus.
Right. Okay, another example. Yes, you.
He answered the riddle of Sphinx. I mean, he's a large part of the city, and although this, he sacrificed his soul for the sake of others, for the sake of people who don't know him before.
Excellent. Very good. Yes, please.
He planned himself and himself from thieves to remove the blood of people.
All right. Yeah. So these are examples that we already mentioned before, and we don't need to repeat. Right? Something else that we would like to add, that his goodness in general is supposed to be more than his own wickedness. The good intentions lead him in a certain time for making fatal mistakes. That he might make fatal mistakes by good intention. By good intention, yes.
I want to take an example. He is not perfect when he killed the king, his father, because of his pride. That means that he's not totally good and he's not perfect.
Yeah. The most common tragic flow, in the tragedies, all classic tragedies, is the excessive pride. The excessive pride. This excessive pride is actually a most common in the characters. Is it applicable to Oedipus to a certain degree? Yes. Yeah. Yes, please.
I believe since these classic tragedies mainly talk about noble people from the noble class, it's it makes sense that pride is the fatal mistake.
Yes.
His mistakes were actually pride, ego, and temper, and you can see it a lot during the play, especially when Crayon told him that he was the murderer and he refused. So he is very proud of himself.
Good. Temperamental, you mean? Temperamental?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That it helps in in identifying his own mistakes, right? Well. So also it must be appropriate to his own character. The hero's language and behavior must be suitable to his own character, his age, gender, and social status, right? So in other words, the protagonist must speak and act according to his, as we said, to his own, gender, age, and social status. This is, we repeated this more than one time. Tragic hero is also must have likeness, must be human, not superhero, to be like human beings having vices, virtues, weak points, and also consistent with what is probable and necessary to happen. No sudden changes in his own development are permitted. The change is supposed to be gradual and probable, probable to happen, and sometimes must be necessary to happen. Necessary to happen, right? Well, fine. What is about the nobility of origin, He is born to a king. He is the son of a king, and from a royal family. And he also was raised up by another king, which is King Oedipus and Queen Merope, So he's a king, was a prince, a son of a king, and was raised up by a king. ايش عايزين اكتر من هيك يعني, right? This is the nobility of origin, right? The goodness as part of the nobility of action. The nobility of action. He's good, He left Corinth to Thebes for the sake of what? Not making the prophecy of the oracle to come true. This is an example. Oedipus answers the Sphinx riddle to save Thebes, although he is not part of the city, So he risked his own life for the sake of people, some people that he never knew before, And he never gave up on, the truth. What do we mean by this? That this is actually part of his own goodness, which is seeking the truth, But at the same time, it might be considered as a tragic flow. Sometimes you don't need to know the truth, right?
Seeking the truth is one of the reasons that led to his tragic flow.
Good, good. And I mean that you don't need to know the truth all the time. This is what I think, at least, right? Or when you have a quest for the truth and you always try to know what is hidden, right? It might not be good for you. It might not good, right? Oedipus also pronounces a curse on the murderer and promises to make him live in darkness, which also, right, shows that he is a just person, right? Part of his own goodness. When the messengers come back from Corinth telling him that King Polypus died, Oedipus becomes happy. Why? Because he did not kill his own father, as the oracle prophesies. Also, he refuses to go back to Corinth because he is still afraid that he might kill his own, marry his mother, sorry, right? And therefore, right, this is also part of his own goodness. A final example, right, when Oedipus, right, promised the people that he's going to punish the criminal, he punishes himself, right? You hardly find people who do that, right? When it comes to them and to their families, all right, laws can be jumped over and promises can be deleted easily, right? So here, the last one, which shows that he sacrificed himself for a nobler objective, which is removing the plague, right, from, Thebes. Any question? Is that okay? Good. So we will come to imperfection. We said that he is supposed to be good, but not perfect. So we analyzed the first part, which is being good, and we gave examples. Now we will give examples for his own imperfection, right? To show that he is not an angel, right? So when he decided to go to the oracle at Delphi to ask about his own parents, hoping for a straight answer, right? This is a kind of imperfection. He could have trusted what his own parents said. Do you understand what I mean? Why should you go in order to seek more knowledge, right? You should have trusted your own parents, who are, right, foster parents. When you ask them that, what, right, am I your own biological son? And they said, yes. So, what is the need for going to the oracle in order to look for, right, for more information, right, or a confirmation for what has been said by your own parents? Do you trust, the oracle more than trusting your own parents? Right? This is a mistake. This is, yes?
Why consider the seeking for to know the truth, that imperfection? Any one of us want to know the truth because his parents.
Yeah, but sometimes, right, when you seek, right, the truth all the time, right, it might not be good for you. It might cause you a lot of trouble. إن تبد لكم تسؤكم. Yeah, sometimes, right, you don't need to have to be very curious. Yeah, you are supposed to be curious, but not to be very curious, right? Because it will bring you a lot of troubles, right? Sometimes there are some things that you don't need to know, right? Right, I do remember, right, one of the famous tragedies, right, a dialogue between two characters who are always together. One is calling himself Didi and the other is called Gogo. They are friends. One of them, yeah, Didi and Gogo, two, right? Because they consider themselves as what? As two idiots, right? Yeah. So one of them was taking a nap, right? And the other one, asked him to wake up. So when he woke up, he told him, right, good, right, I had a bad dream. The other one said, don't tell. I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen, right? So the other character, he said, if I am not going to tell my bad dreams to you, to whom shall I tell? You know, right? So he doesn't want to know because he don't want to be depressed. right? Sometimes you don't need to know everything, right? So I consider this as a kind of what? A kind of a tragic flow, but not a complete tragic flow. Okay, thank you. Right. Yes,
I
please.
want to say another situation that indicates the imperfections in Oedipus' story. That when he was walking in the road, he killed all the people who wants to come in front of him. I mean that it's indicates to the pride, and it's like instinct in the people. So
We will talk about this. This is more than a kind of imperfection. This is a big mistake, right? So his ignorance and anger, right? I mean, he is easy to get angry, right?
Because it is a pride.
It is. It might be like that, but temperamental. Cannot imagine when Cryon came to tell him that Tiresias says that you are the murderer. Yeah, it is a big accusation, but he forgot everything about Cryon. Cryon, he is supposed to be his own brother-in-law, and he trusted him. He left for a long time with Cryon. But for a moment, he accused him of what? Of conspiring against him, right? As if he forgot all the history, the good history of Cryon, and he got angry in order to what? In order to, all right, to prove one thing, that he is a temperamental in nature, right? Which is a kind of imperfection as well.
Victor, ignorance wasn't made by Oedipus. Why we consider it as an imperfection?
Right. I mean that it was not caused by him, but it is one of the mistakes in his own character, that he doesn't know his own identity, right? I mean that if he knew his own identity, nothing would have happened. And I'm not blaming him for that. I'm blaming the parents. I explained this before. Yes?
No, it's getting a little bit complicated. Now, he does not know anything about his own identity, but we're also, saying that he was not supposed to seek the truth behind his identity.
Yeah, but already he asked about his own identity, and he should have trusted his own parents. This is what I'm saying, right? So the quality of looking too much for things and for information might not be good. I'm saying not always good, might not be good at certain situations. Right? So I'm not making a generalization regarding this point, right? Yes. Do you want to say something? Right. Well, right. So he is ignorant and mistaken, as he sends Cryon to Tiresias to know who the murderer is, right? Since the king knows himself to be innocent, as we said, he accuses Cryon of plotting against him, and this is a kind of temperamentality, right? As we said, easy to get angry. Well, so we said that he's good, but he is imperfect. But he is also a consistent character, consistent with is what is probable, right, and necessary to happen, right? He leaves Corinth towards Thebes to avoid the prophecy of the oracle. This is probable to happen. This is something probable to happen for a good person, right? Because he doesn't want to hurt his own parents, so he left the city. Something probable, right? It is probable or maybe necessary for Oedipus to get angry sometimes, right? And defend himself and kill King Laus when he struck him. Why? Right? It is probable, yes. But it is necessary, right, from another point of view. Because of what? Because of... Right, yes.
I mean, Oedipus here committed a crime, and it was necessary for him to be punished. Otherwise, it will not be fair.
Yeah, right. But because of his imperfection, right, this might lead to a fatal mistake. I mean that it was necessary sometimes. I'm writing here that it is probable much more than being necessary, right? That any people, they can quarrel, they can fight, and we might have injuries, right? So it was also probable for the people of Thebes to reward Oedipus by making him their own king, right? Well, consistent with what is his own, yes? I understand what you mean, right? But the basic necessity in his own character is, right, how he starts and how he ends, right? We talked about the probability in the action and the probability of the story. The story in general is probable to happen, right? And the actions of the hero most probably are probable to happen, right? But what was necessary to happen, as I told you, that it was necessary for him to know his own identity in order to remove the plague. Right? The plague cannot be removed unless the hero knows his own true identity. Because, right, the only way of removing the plague or the curse is to punish the murderer. And therefore it was necessary to know who the murderer is in order to what? To remove the plague. So the dramatic action moves by necessity. Something else, right? At the beginning of his own character, right, at the beginning of the play, he was considered as a hero. All right. It seems that the marker is not working. Is there any marker around? Do you have one? Thank you. Right. So at the beginning of the beginning of the dramatic action, he was a hero. He was considered as a savior, right? Okay, he's a king. Good, right? But how does he end up? He ends up as, right, murderer, outcast, adulterer, and nothing. He ends up as, right. This development was necessary. This development in his own character. Why? Because here, right, he committed a crime, right? And at the end, he's supposed to be punished, right? Yeah. And therefore, it was necessary for him to end up this way in order for the rule of necessity to be fulfilled, which is the punishment for the crime. The punishment for the crime, right? So we find that even the development in his own character is propelled by necessity, right? So actions are probable, and also his, right, either probable and the development of his character is necessary. You got it or not?
Yes.
Well, right, and we come to this point, which is not supposed to be consistency, but it is supposed to, right, to come down, right? Right. We will explain having likeness. Sorry. What happened? And we said likeness is supposed to be a human being. And Oedipus got married, had kids, right, was happily married, made mistakes, which makes him what? A human being. Well, right, this is not consistent, but, right, probable, right, sorry, appropriate. He is an appropriate character. So you need to, right, to change this title to make it as appropriate character, right? And what is the meaning of appropriateness? If you, right, still remember that his own actions and his language, right, are supposed to be, right, not probable, but suitable for his own age, right? Okay. So he speaks and acts like a king when he says, for example, this is a quotation from, right, the play. I here pronounce my sentence upon his head, no matter who may be. He is forbidden shoulder or, right, whatever. Look at the way he speaks, right? The way he speaks is not like a common man, but he speaks like what? A man of authority, like a man of power, a man of power. And at the same time, he is able to fulfill whatever he says. So the way, the language that he speaks is characterized by decorum, right, which is suitable to his own status. So now we have proven that he is good and he is also imperfect. He is noble in origin and he is consistent with the rules of probability and right necessity, and he is appropriate to his own age, gender, and social status. Right? What else do we need to prove? Right? Yes. The tragic flaw in his own character. And Oedipus directly causes his own downfall. Not because he is evil, not or proud only, right? Or weak, but simply because he did not know who he was. Right? If he knew who he was, nothing would have happened. Right? In other words, his hamartia is illustrated in Oedipus's ignorance, his own ignorance. Right? Ignorance of what? Ignorance of his own identity. Right? Not ignorance in general. Not ignorance in general. Right? So he left Corinth to avoid the oracle's prophecy was a mistake caused by his own ignorance of who his parents are. Right? Getting angry and killing the king, it was also a mistake caused by what? By his own ignorance of his own identity. Right? And also seeking to uncover the past all the time, cursing the murderer of King Laus, sending for the herdsman. Each of action is actually, right, leads to one thing, which is his own downfall. Let things go. Don't dig up too much. Right? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Let things go. لو ما راحش لهذا كان ما صارش لهذاك. But at the same time, right, do we consider him as being morally guilty? Is he a morally guilty person? Right? Why? Because he committed things, right, while he is ignorant. Right? Oedipus is not morally guilty for his own deeds, but he is radically ignorant. Right? And Sophocles himself, the writer, doesn't present him as a unique case, something who is perfect, but rather as a paradigm, right? An example, right, of the human conditions that everyone might live. We might make a lot of mistakes because of what? Ignorance. Right? This is true. So he is providing him not as a moral example, but he's providing him as a paradigm. Do you understand what I mean? I mean that Oedipus here doesn't represent the moral ground upon which things and people are supposed to be judged. Right? But he is a human being. Right? A man like our own selves. Right? كل ابن آدم خطاء. Right? Yeah. And he felt remorse, he felt guilty, and he punished himself, which shows that he is good. Tamam? Well, fine. So, in general, my question, right, that I'm asking you, would you sympathize with Oedipus or not?
Yes.
Why?
Because he's good.
He's good, right? But not very good.
Yeah, he's imperfect.
Yes, please.
Because it's not his mistake.
It's not whose mistake is this? It is the mistake of his own parents. Yes.
He had good intentions since the very beginning of the story.
Yeah, he was heroic in nature as well.
Yeah.
He had the initiative to help. Yes.
He's good, and at the end, he has a bad ending.
Right. So this what generates what we call it, right? Pity and fear. So audience feel, right, pity and fear for the hero because the flaw is not his own fault. His downfall, right, seems what? Undeserved. He doesn't deserve this. Audience also feel that fear because they can identify themselves with the hero. That this is something possible to happen to them as human beings. And this is why we said that he is presented as example, but not a moral example, a paradigm that could happen to what? Right, to anyone, right? And you have to think, right, wait, this could happen to me. This could happen to me. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, regarding killing like any person, whether he was his father or not, like he deserved what happened to him according to killing his
According to the rule of necessity, yes. Yeah, and it happened already. Right? So catharsis is done. Why? Because, right, all crime has been punished. Right? If it has not been punished, you will always what? Feel that catharsis cannot be achieved. Unless you sympathize with him blindly, like sympathizing with the robbers rather than sympathizing with what? With the police. Right? قول يا رب ما يمسكوهم. Well, we are going to stop here. Right, and we are going to explain the other elements next time. The remaining elements, which are like what? Like the spectacle, the thought, right? Right? So I want you to share. Please share. نراكم إن شاء الله يوم السبت.